I apologize if I didn't pronounce his um, name correctly, but in the category of my favorite thing, fifth jazz musicians, I include George Benson, from jazz to blues, um, from blues to jazz, sorry, or R&B, Robben Ford from blues to jazz and fusion, and there may be some other guitar players also in that tradition, such as Mike Stern, who started with blues rock before getting into jazz, and the same can be said of John Scofield. So they all belong to the same group. The difference is that the one that is most rooted into the blues is Robben Ford, because his credentials for years were playing with, say, Charlie Musselwhite, or the great singer, um, the Californian singer. Now I have a lapsus. My apologies. Jimmy Witherspoon. So that's why he's so amazing when he's playing fusion, because he never loses his blues tone, articulation, and timing. It's something that he has in common in part with George Benson. His timing and bluesy lines are otherworldly, and even if he's trying to emulate Wes Montgomery as a bebop player, I mean, that gritty blues comes out spontaneously from his playing. That's why I prefer him to Wes Montgomery, even if I love him too. So that's number five. To recapitulate, the others were the great tenors. 10, Lester Young, Sonny Rollins, Coleman Hawkins. 9, the great band leaders, Basie, Eglinton, recently Bill Evans, Gil Evans, I'm sorry, and her disciple Maria Schneider. 8, I would have the founders, Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton. 7, the transgression guitar players that put jazz into areas that are very difficult to penetrate, and I would add here the metal jazz guitar player Vernon Reid, very underrated, for example, by Andy Edwards or Rick Beato, who can go on Marty Friedman and Jason Becker and the other Paul Gilbert and Ignil Malmsteen, and nothing about Vernon Reid or Edge Wright, even more ignored. And those are bona fide jazz guitar players, while the others are virtuoso guitar players, basically coming from rock. Why is that? I'll let you speculate. So after Edge Wright, who is kind of Hendrix that plays metal and jazz with abandon and virtuosity at the same time. I would have the blues players that get into free jazz and blues. Here we have Pete Cossey that played with Miles in the first part of the 70s, and also James Blood Ulmer, who played with Ornette Coleman. And as a bona fide blues players, I recommend his records. I particularly love his growling voice. And then six, to finish this recapitulation, we have Thelonious Monk, maybe the best composer in the history of jazz, and very original as well. People used to complain he plays wrong notes. Well, actually, I like these wrong notes. They give him his own personality that I don't give. And he plays them consciously because he likes them. So to me, they are part of his personality and of his compositions, which are taken as a whole. To me, maybe the best compositions in jazz. And then Charlie Mingus, who's a giant of big band, taking it from Duke Ellington and going to bebop and beyond. Beyond meaning free with Eric Dolphy, before Ornette Coleman, in my opinion. And sometimes for those who like heavy, like in heavy metal, I would suggest they listen to Charlie Mingus. I mean, heavier than that, frankly, I don't know. In jazz, definitely heavier than the Bad Plus or anything like that. That's my opinion. He's a genius. He had the same disorder than Jaco Pastorius, which is depression with mania, according to what I read. And here I find that both Rick Beato, but mostly Andy Edwards, are doing a bad commentary on Jaco Pastorius, like talking about Andy, talking about narcissism. Frankly, that's not narcissism. He had a manic state. I mean, it is important because narcissism is a personality disorder that is still questioned because its biological origins are misunderstood, and also the psychological determinants of the biological dysfunction, if there is one that's specifically linked to narcissism, are not known. So I would avoid these labels that can be seen derogatory. So let Jaco Pastorius be happy without medication, saying I'm the best jazz player in the world, because among other things he was. So if there's somebody who could brag in this earth, that was him. So I'm sorry that he's been called narcissistic. I won't get into the features of narcissism, but they are very unpleasant and some famous politicians have this trait and easily recognizable. Then we have number 4, a point that I want to make that is qualitatively different from Grieg's or Andy's. The point is that we do not need to worship the same musicians if we come from different cultures. So, for example, in my list, although Coltrane should be there with the tenors, at least number 10, but with his combo, McCoy Tyner, Elvin Jones, I probably would put him here at number 4. My favorite record is not A Love Supreme. Supreme, A Love Supreme. That doesn't make me feel anything. I'm not spiritual, and this kind of chant doesn't say anything to me. So for those who are not spiritual and are moved by things like Love Supreme, or two of my favorite guitar players who played A Love Supreme, I didn't buy the record precisely because of that, because I didn't like that tune, and I thought that I loved them so much that I could not buy a record that I wouldn't like, specifically for John McLaughlin and for Carlos Santana. So, excuse me if I'm not a fan of A Love Supreme. And instead I have Gato Barbieri, which is Latin, closer to my origins, Latin from Argentina, and his style of tenor has a huge intensity. He mixes a Latin style of playing the saxophone with free jazz. And he is a great melody player and at the same time a free jazz player. And that he has shown the mastery of other styles of Latin jazz with other records like Viva Emiliano Zapata. But in the first record, Volume 1, he has a tune called the first tune of the record called Encuentros is a superb example of his style. First, he lets all the instruments from Latin American folklore set this multi-rhythmic background, as it happens with samba, for example, and he repeats it with the samba at the end of the record. And then he enters with this Latin lyricism and runs with it towards free jazz. And I really suggest that you listen to it for those who have an ear towards Latin music, flamenco, etc. And after Gato Barbieri, excuse me, I would recommend in my list, I have two European gypsy guitar players, Django Reinhardt. A lot has been said already about his genius, and Paco de Lucia, who played with Aldi Meola, Larry Coryell, and Joe McLaughlin. And I think that why I put him here, because he was influenced by jazz, playing with these musicians. And he had an influence on them, specifically Aldi Meola, since, and probably Coryell, who was very much open, and to me, he was the first guitar fusion player, or maybe the first fusion player. I suggest to listen to him with Herbie Mann and Sonny Sharrock in playing soul jazz, electrified soul jazz in the Memphis Underground record. So Aldi Meola created something different that was not flamenco. He was actually rejected by the flamenco community in Spain, and is full of cultural influences that are not flamenco, including jazz or Peruvian percussion and others. So this is another favorite of mine. In the number two, I have a single artist, and this is Keith Jarrett. I love his eclecticism and blending on styles that's so spontaneous. Is unique. When Miles Davis asked him, "How do you do? How do you do to being a genius?" He says, "What do you mean? You're starting from nothing, and that's it. You can feel how he creates his music as he plays, and that he lets his imagination guide him. That's a unique ability, and his solo concerts are full of sections that are rhapsodies where he mixes stride, blues, gospel, classical music, and nothing of it feels forced or prefabricated or formulaic. It's something that really comes from within Keith Jarrett. He's a genius, of no doubt about that. And then at number one, we have the one and only Miles Davis. He's a difficult choice because he's a controversial figure, especially after he published his autobiography, and that for me means a great form of I would say the maximum form of creativity. I mean, I understand that Louis Armstrong is the first musician creating this art form, but Miles has changed it at least 10 different ways. And I will give you a summary that some of you may think it's exaggerated or very generous, but in reality it is quite comprehensive and real. He didn't invent bebop, of course. he joined it, but he influenced bebop by changing the way bebop trumpet could be played. No, this is real. A second and already fully personal style was the cool jazz that went into the West Coast, and then with the modern jazz quartet or the chamber jazz style. There were even subdivisions within this style of music that he created with Gil Evans. Next, we have the establishment of the highest level of the third stream, with his playing of orchestral compositions from, say, European music or classical American music, so to say. This would be Rodrigo's Concierto de Aranjuez or Porgy and Bess. And he had similar records like Miles Davis Plus 19 that are equally profound. Let's listen to Blues for Pablo, for example. He achieves a level of excellence and maturity with his records that made him a global star. So, I mean, sometimes it happens that the person who's the most revolutionary in a field is embraced by the public or can be rejected, which happened to him when he deviated from these more European static forms of jazz. He, after that, he went back to the blues with hard bop. He invented hard bop with at least 2 records in '54. The first Walking, and then Bugs Groove with Milt Jackson. In my opinion, Milt Jackson is really undervalued because he plays the vibes. Otherwise, he would be highly recognized and praised. But of course, that's counterfactual, that cannot be tested. So let's go into another. This would be the fifth style that he invented. I would say the post-bebop, which is the one that's still most popular today. And he basically gave the freedom to bebop to get almost into free jazz with improvisations that were extremely open to, say, modal jazz and others, like, and I forgot Kind of Blue, which is, say, the establishment of modal jazz. That could be considered a sixth change of style. So now we are in the seventh style, I would say the fusion ambient in a silent way. That would be possible a separate style from the electric jazz ensemble or the electric community, communal play, going back to New Orleans, the collective improvisation, but with elements of rock and other musics, such as, say, Indian in this case. So that would be a way of characterize Beach's brew, which in my opinion is almost inclassifiable, and I have it as a separate record from his discography. So after this style that I tried to define, he would have a seventh creation would be the jazz rock. That's more Jack Johnson would fit more into this aesthetic, the energy, the blues influence, and the hard rhythm and use of chords that can be observed in this extraordinary piece of music. And eighth change of style, I would include the maybe others did it before, but maybe when he played those tapes with Larry Coryell, not what I've heard so far, but when he came back playing with Mike Stern, he took it from what people might have expected from Electric Miles, which is a blend of post-bop and rock electrification and a little bit of blues. And that's what Mike Stern brought to the mix. But the personality of John McLaughlin was so intense and domineering of fusion that everybody thought that his mix of electric guitar with electric rock sounds, Hendrix, and Indian music was the norm of fusion. But in fact, what would have been more logical to expect would have been something like Mike Stern that brought Hendrix, rock, and bop or post-bop together. And that's what he did after his retirement. So here we go with another style, number 8, that I'm saying maybe somebody has done it already, but let's attribute to him, right? And then we have a 9th style, which is the Afro-Caribbean jazz that we see in Amandla, and electronic jazz of Tutu with programming, drum machines. Today he would be doing it with AI, I'm sure. So that's another style too. And it's the element of jazz is clear in his phrasing, in his blues roots in Tutu, for example. So also the clarinet playing by Marcus Miller, or the fabulous violinist Michael Urbaniak in one of the songs. And also the Scritti Politti new wave song, which made him embrace that period of popular music, which is something that Miles always was in tune. He said, I'm playing social music. He's a sponge of the sounds that he hears in the streets, right? So, and on the radios. And finally, I have another style that he revolutionized, and for me is blues. At the core, he was a blues player, and he brought the blues to all these changes. He showed that you can play blues with modal jazz, with electric rock, with hard bop, of course, that's the one that is more explicit, or with any other of the styles that I mentioned. Look, for example, the blues with wah-wah, electric wah-wah trumpet, and I think Bernard Purdie on drums, and well, I think it's Purdie that's on drums and not bass. I may made a mistake, excuse me. And in a stroke of genius, he plays these post-Hendrix wah-wah trumpet with very few notes, but that fall perfectly into the blues, behind a big band blues that has as a lead instrument also a harp. That's one of these examples where he was able to bring the blues in all the changes, styles that he he created. And maybe an 11th style that he may have created is the hip hop jazz, but he didn't have time to mature it. He had just a first record. If he had lived a little bit longer, would have been probably a masterpiece using this genre with his playing. And that's all for today, folks. If you don't agree with me, let me know, and we will discuss further. And you can see it's very different from Rick and Andy in particular, and on several dimensions, ethnic, racial, for example, also the personality of the musicians, their conventional style, or more safe. Well, have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye from Toronto, Barcelona, and sometimes Baltimore.